Hey guys, so just wanted to kind of show you how this video came together and kind of how I pieced it together, some of the workflow things that I had going on. So this is the Crystal Bridges North video that I shot last week and put together on Saturday. And yeah, just wanted to give you guys just a brief idea of kind of from the beginning how this all, how I brought all this in, just kind of from the start, just to give you a basic view of just kind of the workflow. So I've got some SSD drives. That's kind of the first thing I'm looking at right now. Is I've got some Samsung T5 drives, and they're really nice, like fast drives. They're USB-C, so they're not like Thunderbolt 3 or anything like that. But they still give me about 500 megabytes a second, which is pretty good for Blackmagic Raw is what I'm editing. So yeah, so that's been working pretty good. So this is my archive drive right here. This is like a 12 terabyte. Let's see, and I use that to archive all my finished videos. So how I have this laid out, I the way I did this was I pulled in a shot on my Blackmagic Pocket Cinema, and then transferred all the files over to this. I have these all kind of numbered. These are kind of like my side projects and just projects for me. I have a video folder, an audio folder, and an exports folder, and all this is just kind of gets added in automatically with the auto saves and the previews and stuff like that when I save my Premiere file in here. I've got two of them because I thought I'd start one from from scratch. So I've got it open. So these are all my videos. They are all shot in B-Raw, which is Blackmagic Raw. So this is the way it looks. It's just a flat color profile. I always like to preview videos, but when you hit this, I always hit spacebar. But when you're previewing like a B-Raw file, it just gives you one frame, and it's usually not the first frame. It's like somewhere in the middle. I don't know what frame it actually is, but um, if you want to watch like a full, the full video before you even bring it into Premiere, you just have to double click on it and open it in this Blackmagic Raw player, and then you can scrub and watch the footage. So what I did, first of all, was just kind of I took this video folder and just drug it over and pulled it into the project window in Premiere. And there was a few files in there. I'll go back to this real quick. There's a few files in there that are not exactly B-Raw. There's a sidecar. I think when I was doing a time lapse, there was a sidecar file that was generated. So when I brought all those over, it kind of kicked that file back, but everything else transferred over just fine. So these are all the files, and so now you can double click on those and kind of go through those, and you're and you're looking at them in a flat color profile. So this is kind of before before it gets color graded or anything like that. And so yeah. So I've already, so kind of what I did, I've kind of gone through and set some in and out points, but how you do that is you double click on it, shows up in your source, and then you, I think this one ended up getting graded, sort of. So you hit the I for in, and then O for out. So I'm just going to pick that part of the shot and just drag it in. Now you can drag in the whole thing, but I really don't want the audio. I just want the video part. So you can just drag this, and it just drags the video down to your timeline. Now, I've already made the timeline, but I just want to give you a look at the sequence settings just to show you what I do. And I always love doing this because it just helps the whole thing just move a whole lot faster. So if I were to, let's say I want to create a new sequence. Let's just say I want to do that. So it gives you all this stuff, and you're like, what? I don't want to make an area, all this stuff. I don't want to do all this stuff. So just go straight to settings, and it gives you the area, but just go up one notch and go to custom. And you see all my footage is 24 frames a second. I want to make this 24 frames a second as well. And it is, I'm just going to make it, I'm not going to make it 1920. I forget what size it is. Let's see, I might have to come back to that. So let's just say it is 1920 by 1080, which it's not, but you'll enter in the frame size here. Make sure that your display format is the same, and your sample rate on your audio is 4800 or 48,000. That's typical with video. You could go 44.1, but 48,000 is better. So this is where a lot of people that I've talked to, they kind of leave it at that MPEG. But that's not native to a Mac. I'm on a Mac, and so I would switch over to, if you're on a PC, then maybe, yeah. But if you're on a Mac, I would switch over to QuickTime, because that's the ProRes the ProRes codec is much more, it's native. So, and I always switch it over, and animation is like completely uncompressed. So I always switch it over to, 422, like all these. So this round of numbers right here, all the ProRes stuff. The XQ, the 4444 XQ is kind of like the, you're going to get the highest file size. It's going to be the least compressed besides just animation. And then it goes to 4444, and then you go to 422 HQ, and then 422, and then 422 LT, and then 422 proxy. So I always just, for preview purposes, 422 LT just works fine. And you could even take it down to like 720 or something like that, because you're not seeing it full screen. You don't have to see it completely just like uncompressed or anything like that. So it saves time. Now the only thing that it doesn't do is it's not going to be able to use that when it renders all that stuff. It's not going to be able to use that when you export it, but it helps so much when you're previewing. So if I were to just drag that in, I already know I'm gonna have issues when I bring that in, because this is a 2.35 to 1 aspect ratio, and this is a 16 by 9. So it's asking me if I want to change it, and well, do I want to change it? Probably. So let's go ahead and change it. And so now it took on that 235 to 1, but we may have to go back in and look at the sequence settings one more time, because it kind of switched everything back over. So, but we see now that this is 4096 by 1720, which is that 235, and it's 4K footage. So the only thing we do have to change is get back to the QuickTime and switch over to 422 LT, and maybe do like width 1920, and then it automatically switches to whatever it needs to be. 806 is what it is in that aspect ratio, and I'm gonna hit OK, because it's telling me that I'm gonna lose all my preview renders and stuff like that. So all right, so this is where we want it. We want it at that 235 to 1. Not sure. Let's see, where did that go? There it is. It's down here at the bottom. So it's sequence 3. I'm just going to use sequence 3 from now on. Okay, so I showed you how to set the in and out points, and just kind of, I typically just kind of go through. This is how I typically will go through is, and this is in list format right now. I always like to switch it over to icon view, and just look at the icons, because then that makes it just a little bit easier. when I'm just kind of visually kind of going through. You could essentially you could go through and you can scrub like these little thumbnails if you want to, and you could set your in and your out points just by scrubbing across it, saying in, out, in, out. You could do that just hitting I and O. I always kind of just like to, as I'm looking at it, it just makes better sense for me just to go ahead and double click on it. And let's see, let me shrink it back down a little bit. And yeah, I always like to just double click on it, and then I liked this part of the shot here. I already know what part of the shot I'm picking out. So and then I set the out point, and then again I drag not the audio but just the video down. So one thing that I do want to show you is that so I shot this in 60 frames a second. I wish I did like the off-speed recording. So I shot it in 60 frames a second inside a 24 frames per second frame rate. So everything that we bring, if we bring it into this timeline, it's going to be in slow-mo, which is good. I wish I would have shot it at 48. I didn't, you know, you watch a lot of tutorials, and then I realized everybody was saying shoot in 60, shoot in 60, and then finalize your stuff in 24. But there was a lot of people are using some DSLRs that don't have a 48 frames per second setting, and so they kind of just pick the next best one. But the 48 frames per second just really helps the calculation of doing it slow-mo. It only has to pull out every other frame instead of picking out like every 2.5 frames, which is so right now what we're seeing is the 2.5 frames, and it looks pretty smooth when I'm watching it here, but you really notice it when you export it at full you know, an MOV file. If I were to export it at a H.264 MP4, then it does something to it so it doesn't feel so jerky. But when I export it as an MOV and watch it back in 24 frames a second, you can tell it's very, very jerky and very hard to watch. So so yeah, so I'd rather yeah, so I'd rather just get it shoot it at 48 and do it that way. So so I'll bring in let me find a good shot here. So just to kind of go over to what I shot with my Blackmagic Pocket Cinema 4K. Shot it in Blackmagic Raw, and I shot it like 8:1, which isn't the highest setting. Kind of it goes backwards. Kind of you start from 12:1, which is kind of like the least or the most compressed, which you're going to get the smallest file. So that's 12:1, and then 8:1, 5:1, and then 3:1, I believe. So so yeah, that gives you the 8:1 is kind of like you know, you get your smaller size, just a little bit smaller size, but you also get you know, just that raw, the good things about raw. 12:1 is pretty good, but it's kind of somewhere in between like a H.264 and an MOV, or like a 422 and a 422 LT. It's somewhere in between those two, and I like doing the step up from that. I do 3:1, but I don't have that much space to be just kind of, you know, maxing it out, and I don't really care to max it out for these types of projects, since it's going to YouTube, and that's about it. Oh, this was fun. I found this random like a Pelican case, but it was a Craftsman, I believe, and just locked in the woods, and I didn't want to touch it. But yeah, So just to show you kind of dealing with the Blackmagic Raw. So let me bring this shot in. So this is slow-mo, of course. And so what I did, after I went back through and just brought everything in, to kind of get into the Blackmagic settings, you go into the master, under the effect controls, you go into the master part of the file, and there you see your Blackmagic Raw, and you can decode just kind of like as it is, and you can add the color from there. But what I really like just going in and doing it by the clip. And I shot with it's called Cinecolor is the LUT that I used, and it worked really good for me. I did find there was a bit of an issue because I didn't realize that it was a Gen 5 color science, and so it was left at Gen 4 on the settings. And so when I apply the LUT, it goes like crazy. It looks terrible. And so when I switch it over to Gen 5, then it looks normal. And so just word of caution, if you ever use that Cinecolor and you shoot on a Blackmagic, the nice thing about this is look at how many ISO stops I can adjust this. So if it just was way too bright, I can bring it down. I can continue to bring it down even to like 100. I think that even 320 would work. So I'm going to adjust it down to 320. Blackmagic always puts like this tint of 10 on there, and I'm just going to take that off and take it down to 0. I always like to play with the saturation just a little bit, and so that LUT is applied, that Cinecolor LUT. So if I turn it off, that's what it looks like. If I turn it back on, that's what it looks like. So I like the way it looks. I always like crushing the blacks just a little bit, not too much. Same thing with the white level, just bring that down just a little bit. Shadow really doesn't do that much, but that kind of lands it where I've typically been landing. And then, okay, so so that's pretty much all the settings I can do from there. I do go over, I think you can apply the lumetri or lumetri, however you say it. I'm going to call it lumetri. You can apply that to the actual full clip. See, all these settings are going on the entire full clip, which is fine. I'm only using part of it anyway. So if you do have like a shot where you're using multiple takes off of one clip, it's going to apply all the way across, which is nice. It can be nice, but it can be troublesome if you're constant, if you've got light changing and stuff like that. So, but then I go over to lumetri, and I always set like a vignette. I'm learning that I like that, and just taking it down like -2. If you go positive, it goes white, but it's always I always like applying the amount there to like 2 or 3. -2 is usually where I've been sitting. So that's kind of where I typically color it. Yeah, so that's kind of how it all came together. Again, you just kind of lay each part out, and kind of how it all came together. I'll open the finished one. Let's see if I can find it real quick. There it is. So it's got, I'm not sure what's happening here. Let's just drag that over here. Pull this over. I'll have to readjust here, but so this kind of gives you an idea of the finished video. There's only a handful of things that I really did to really give it a little bit more pop. I do want to tell you that after going through all these shots and bringing them all in, my video was like 7 minutes long. No, it was 9 minutes long. It was 9 minutes long. just with all the shots. So just working it down from 9 minutes, I just kind of lay them out, individual shots, and just kind of lay them out in a series. And then that's when I start deciding, I start picking out the music. So that gives me an idea. So that's what's down here. Um, and that gives me an idea of like my finished length of 3 minutes. And then I start just kind of cutting to that. This over here is just like the explanation of, that was just me shooting with my iPhone, just like, here's the camera and stuff like that. Here's that lens, by the way, that I really loved. It's an Olympus lens. It's like 12 millimeter zoom to 50 millimeter zoom. And I just absolutely loved it. It's going to be a good go-to lens. It's like a 3.6 stop on the widest, so it's a little bit slower than like a prime lens that I have. That's like a 1.6 or something like that. But this is, it worked really well. Had a lot of cool features to it. The zoom is electronic, or you could set it to manual, which worked really well with the Blackmagic. It's got a macro feature as well, and it's also got autofocus, and it's weatherproof. So a lot of cool things about it, and I absolutely loved shooting with it. I brought a few lenses, and I ended up just using the one, so I had a great time doing it. So anyway, that's really how all this came together. Was just picking out the music. I picked out just something off of Art Grid, just royalty free song, and then I kind of pulled some. I didn't use any sound throughout the thing, but I did pull some of the original audio from like the stream and stuff like that, so you can hear the stream playing, just kind of as I'm playing, or as I'm kind of going through it. I had fun with the now that I'm watching it, I had fun with the gimbal. I have a Ronin SC, and using it in the 360 mode is always fun. And I don't try to hang out on it for too long, because it does, if you spend too much, it just makes you dizzy. So I didn't want to make anybody dizzy. So I just kind of hung out on that for just a little bit, and it felt like that particular shot just went really long. So that's why I cut it in half, because it felt like it was just spinning forever. And I did a little speed ramp too, just to speed it up right here and kind of land almost right there. So yeah, so in this particular 360, I didn't even go on a full revolution. I just went and kind of dissolved to the next shot, which was blurry, which ended up being really cool. Let's see, I really liked, this is with the lens again. I had some really nice lens flares that I like. Some people don't like the lens flares like that, but I thought it was pretty cool, especially with what I'm shooting. And I really loved this shot too, of this just rock with moss growing on it. You see this right here? You get that little that lens flare there. I loved that, just kind of that rainbow color, and yeah, loved that. Let's see, what else? Love this shot, worked out great. Just had some kids that were just riding that ramp the whole time I was pretty close to that area, and you could tell they were like looking over at me, and I was like, okay, I'll shoot one or two of you jumping, and they were like, all right, so they had fun with it. Yeah, something that I have started really loving, pulling the trees into like shots and stuff like that, especially with architecture. Kind of learned that our family was at Washington D.C. A couple years back. I guess it was a year and a half ago, and I started using kind of like the trees as kind of like the foreground and kind of slid across, and I really loved it. And so I'm kind of learning to stick with that, just kind of using the trees as kind of like, it kind of gives you an idea of the scope and the scale of it. So I love doing that. And then there's another like 360 shot. And then again, I kind of use that little pinhole of in between the artwork, and kind of use that to get the sun just shining right in that area. So that gave me just like this full burst of sun. I loved it. And then had these are like the metal rail guards, I guess is what they are. And the sun was hitting them just right. So I was like, that looked really cool. So I focused on the stream, and then just got all these bokehs in the foreground, which turned out pretty cool. I thought it was cool. And then stream again, and then the crystal bridges, that's on the north side. That's one of the art gallery parts of it. Is basically, this is the walkway, and then there's an art gallery behind the wall, and it's very cool. We love going to crystal bridges. It's a great place to go for a lot of cool artwork that you don't get to see anywhere else. So yeah. So yeah, that was the video as a whole. And if anybody, if you have any other questions or anything like that, I know a lot of people have been asking me questions about, what editor do you use and that kind of stuff, and maybe I'll address, kind of just from my perspective, what things that I'm learning. I'm learning a lot, just really focusing more on the video production side of things, and I've just been learning a lot. I've been doing it for a long time, but I don't ever go a day where I don't learn something, or try to do something new. So it's been fun, and I'd love to pass that along. So if anybody's got any questions, you can leave it in the comments. You can email me, daveroberts.productions@gmail.com. You can do all that. You can get a hold of me one way or the other, and I will definitely answer any questions that you guys have, or make some more videos. If you guys are interested in learning anything more, just let me know. I know this video has been kind of long, but I have fun doing it. So if you need anything, just let me know. And have a great weekend, and thanks for watching.